So what I want to do today is I'm going to start and ask someone to do this with me as if I were teaching a student. So this is how I present to, I'd say, from fourth grade on through adulthood, an introduction to multisyllable words. And then we're going to go back and we're going to think like teachers, and we're going to be metacognitive about what did I do and what's important to teach students at this multisyllable level. The reason that we are doing multisyllable right now is we've taught our students the single vowel staircase and quite a number of consonants and single consonants, digraphs, etc. So we can immediately begin to teach them about syllable types because two of the syllable types have single vowels in them. And I pretty much now am teaching those first couple of lessons that are in your textbook. And then I go to syllables because even at the first grade level, students have two-syllable words in what they're reading and writing and spelling. So I'm wondering if I have to pick someone to be my helper here, or someone will volunteer. Isla, okay, Isla, and you must have been on the same wavelength as I. Okay, thank you. So, Isla, when I think of multisyllable words, I think of them like an old-fashioned train. Because old-fashioned trains, which you can see a picture of here, have a train car that is always at the front, and that's called a locomotive. And multisyllable words often have a syllable at the beginning called a prefix. It comes in the beginning. And old-fashioned trains also have a very particular car at the end of the train. It's called a caboose. Just like multisyllable words have syllables that come at the end, which are suffixes. We're going to learn about those too, as well as going back to the image of the train. In a train, there's all kinds of different cars between the locomotive and the caboose. There's coal cars and cattle cars and passenger cars and all kinds of cars, just the same way as we have 6 different types of syllables. So for me to think of multisyllable words, it helps to think of some of the basic ideas and compare it to a train. Another way of thinking about this is that syllables are kind of like building with unifix cubes. So syllables are made up of of a vowel surrounded by consonants, and we can have 2 syllables, 3 syllables, 4, 5. Each syllable would be like the 3 unifix cubes that you see here. They're really said together as a unit, but we can separate them into the individual sounds and also they mean different things. Here's some examples of prefixes. So we have the word dress, and that's a base word, and we're going to add a prefix to it, un. If I add the prefix un, do you have any idea about the meaning of that syllable prefix?
Un means not.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And then we have the word view, which is a base syllable, and I can stick a syllable in the front of it, a prefix, preview. Do you know what the meaning of the word preview means?
Ahead of time.
Ahead of time, to look at something ahead of time. So pre means before viewing. And then here's a third example. We have the base word like, and I stuck a prefix on it, dis, to make the word dislike. What is your hypothesis about what dis might mean?
Not.
You already know a lot about prefixes, don't you? Because these words are in your vocabulary, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now and when I talked about the train and I talked about the locomotive That was similar to prefixes because it comes before the base word at the beginning of the word. We can also put suffixes or syllables on the end of a word. So if we start with the word pitch, and what does the word pitch mean, Isla?
Throw.
To throw. And if I stick the suffix ed on it, it's going to say pitched. What is the meaning of the ed? What does that add to that base word?
Makes it past tense.
Exactly. If I put er on the base word pitch, what does it mean?
Makes it an action word. It makes the action a picture, or I'm sorry, it's a noun. Makes it a noun.
It makes it a noun, doesn't it? So you just said something that's really, really important. So we can add suffixes on that change the part of speech, like the word pitch. I think of as an action word, a verb. But when I put the er on it, it becomes a noun. Isn't that interesting? And if I put ing on, pitching, what it means is that action is happening in real time right now. Okay, so we now know about those different types of prefixes, suffixes, and base words. Let's learn about two types of syllables. These are called open and closed syllables. And there's something that's the same about them. And there's some things that are different about them. Let's look at these words together and see if by talking back and forth, you can figure out the pattern here. So we have the first two words, and can you read the first two, me and met?
Me, met.
And those were accurate. Now I will say a caveat: if I felt my students couldn't read that, I would read them for them. Okay, but I know that Isla can do that. So, what's the same about the letters in the words me and met?
M and E are the same in both.
I agree. I'm wondering, is the sound of the E the same in those two words, or is it different?
It's different.
Oh my gosh. And we've never seen a single vowel saying its letter name, have we? No, the sound of the E in met is the one that we've worked with already. So here's how to figure this pattern out a little. Where is the E? Is it at the end or in the middle of the word in me?
At the end.
And in the word met, where is the E? Is it in the middle or the end?
The middle.
Exactly. And that's the perfect definition of open and closed syllables. Both open and closed syllables have a single vowel. And all syllable types are based upon the vowel. So open and closed syllables both have a single vowel. The difference is the sound of the vowel and the position of the vowel. When the single vowel comes at the end of the syllable with nothing after it, it is an open syllable. And I like to think of this: it opens its mouth and it says its letter name or its long sound. When the single vowel comes in the middle of a word, it says its staircase sound. There's a consonant or consonants after it, and they close off that single vowel, and it says its staircase sound. Let's see if that's true of the other words in this experiment. High and hit. What is the sound of the I in the word high?
Long I.
And would that, I agree. And would that be an open syllable or a closed syllable?
Open.
Yes, because it comes at the end and it says its long sound, doesn't it? Hit, what is the sound of the single vowel?
Short I.
I agree. And is it an open or closed syllable?
Closed.
Okay, let's do it with the last two. So, sod. Are these words, do they follow the pattern?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so if I were to ask you to define the three things that are important about open and closed syllables, what's one?
The vowel at the end by itself says its name.
That's right, the
All
vowel.
vowel.
Yes, that is true. And when the sound is in the middle, what does it say?
It says it's sound, not
Exactly.
its name.
Exactly. And what type of vowel is in both of them? Is it a single vowel or a digraph?
Single vowel.
Okay. And so I would have you write that in your word study notebook. Okay. Thank you, Isla. Okay, so let's go back here now and let's think about actually before what did I do with Isla? How did I teach her about open and closed syllables? And are you seeing steps to teaching multisyllables? Okay, good. So, what did I do to teach her about this first syllable type?
You guided her through it and asked questions
Which is
to make
really
her
an important.
understand.
Yes, that's really an important thing, Reese, because sometimes, even when I'm working with you guys, I feel very uncomfortable because I'm talking too much instead of asking questions. Okay, because we know that in the research about teaching, there's absolutely too much teacher talk. And it's better to have a dialogue with your students than to talk at them. Anybody else observe something that I did as I was teaching it? Leah, did you see something?
Kind of like identify the differences between the two words.
Absolutely. The samenesses and differences. Absolutely. Um, Lizette, what did you see me doing?
You had her read the words so that she can listen to the different sounds.
Exactly. It really makes her an active learner, doesn't it? And that's what I'm going for. So one of the things that I hope you're getting is anytime I do modeling like that, I'm hoping that I'm showing you how I do this, not only the skills, but what is my interaction with the student. Okay? And so I'm hoping that you're paying attention to those kinds of things also. So these are the steps to teaching multi-syllable words. Now we're going back to teacher mode and thinking of, so what do I have to consider when I'm teaching my students the different syllable types? And I think the different syllable types are somewhat of the stepchild of literacy teaching, because a lot of our students in the earlier grades learn about the consonants and the vowels and the rules of spelling, but somehow the syllable types get left out. So teaching these steps are in your book, which you now have, or at least Tracy does, on page 128. And so things that we want to be sure that we teach within each lesson is the idea of what is the structure of a single one syllable word, and then how do we take those structures and just put a couple of them together for multi-syllable words. How do we teach our students to count syllables? How do we teach our students to define syllable boundaries and divide a word into syllables? How do we define the accent within a single word, accented syllables and unaccented syllables, and how that affects the sound of the vowel? And schwa is a technical term that defines the sound of the vowel in the unaccented syllable. And it's a real it is a skill which we have to teach explicitly, because if we leave it to chance, it's kind of a very difficult thing for students to spell vowels in unaccented syllables. And then looking at all of those 5 skill areas and presenting it in lessons about syllable patterns. So what you saw me doing was just teaching the open and closed syllables. I would have to do all the other things in a lesson with my students. So here we have the first step, defining the structure of single and multi-syllable words, which is on page 130 in your book. The reason this is important is it helps us to understand syllable boundaries, because multisyllable words are made up of these patterns. So what I would like everybody to do right now with this slide is I would like you to write down the consonant vowel patterns for these words. So I'll do an example. If I'm doing the word it, what I would write down for it is I would write a V above that single vowel and a C above the consonant. Okay? So will you please do that for each of these words? And when you finish that, just put a thumb up so I know that you've done it. And what I want you to be doing once you finish or while you're doing is to say, is there a pattern here? Is there a pattern here? What's the same? What's different? So take a few minutes and do that, please. So Shannon, can I ask you a question? Okay, let's look at the first row and let's look up at the different vowel consonant patterns. So in the function word, and a function word is the word a. It's a word that has almost no meaning itself, but it's important in grammar because it tells us here comes a noun. But if you're to define the word a is just like, what does it mean, right? Is it a consonant or a vowel?
A vowel.
And how do you pronounce that letter A yourself?
I think I usually say A, but I don't know. I have to really think about it because it's automatic that I don't know if I say sometimes or A when I'm connecting it to that vowel.
Okay, so here's the really interesting thing, and is that sometimes some of us always say A. I want a blanket. But sometimes when we're speaking more informally or really quickly, we say, I want a drink, right? And that's an example of a vowel that has collapsed into a schwa. Because many function words, the vowel is collapsed into a schwa. How about the word at? How did you label the word at?
A vowel consonant.
And is that a closed or an open syllable?
Closed.
I agree, because it has a single vowel followed by a consonant, and the single vowel is saying its staircase sound, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How about the word ME? What did you put for?
Consonant vowel.
Okay. And is that an open or closed syllable?
An open.
Okay. So here we have some of the most basic high frequency words, and they are open and closed syllables, aren't they? That's pretty interesting, isn't it? So that tells us if we teach about open and closed syllables, a lot of those words make sense to our students. Okay, thank you, Shannon. Angela, Kelly, will you do the second row with me? The word MET, and you notice, everybody, I'm not saying the word because I don't want to give how it sounds, how that vowel sounds away. I say the letter names. It's a good habit to have. So what was the consonant vowel pattern that you saw there?
I see a CVC.
I agree. So all of the patterns that we've done so far, VC, just a vowel, CV and CVC, those are simple one-syllable patterns because they have single consonants surrounding a vowel. Now, what about the word ask? What did you put for the word ask?
A VCC.
And I agree with that completely. That is accurate. And what's different about this consonant vowel pattern from the simple one-syllable words that we've already looked at?
That it ends in two consonants together.
Exactly. And there's no vowel between them. That's the essence of the definition of a complex one-syllable word. When you have two consonants that say two sounds next to each other with no vowel in between, that's a complex one-syllable word. I have a question. If I had this word, ASH, what's the pattern there?
Also vowel, consonant, consonant.
Okay, and I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to just put vowel, consonant. Why do you think I just put one consonant there?
Because the sh is a digraph.
Exactly. SH, even though it's two sounds, it's
Yeah.
one sound, no, two
One-
letters, one sound. And that's why ash is a simple one syllable word and ask is a complex one syllable word.
Okay.
Okay? What did you do for skip?
CCVC.
I agree. And is that simple or complex?
I would say simple because it's a vowels in between.
I know, but what about the SK? Is there any vowel between those two single consonant sounds?
No.
No. And that's the key. When you have consonant blends or trigraphs, that makes it a complex syllable. It's also the hardest sequence of skills for students with phonemic awareness to hear, because you've got those two consonants so close together with no vowel, and they are often sullied by each other's sound. And glad, is it different than skip or the same?
Yeah, well, I think it's the same because GL isn't a digraph, right?
Exactly. It's a blend, a consonant blend. Two consonants, two sounds. So it is also a complex one syllable word. Okay? Thank you. So, Cindy, can you do the last row with me? Please.
Yes.
Thank you. So, I'm going to add one here just for the heck of it. And I'm going to, I know I asked you to do, added this. What would you say the consonant vowel pattern is in slashed, which is a nonsense word, is?
Consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant.
Exactly. Pretty complex one syllable word, eh? It's got a cluster at the beginning and a blend at the beginning and a blend at the end. What about the word CLASP?
I think it's the same thing. Blend at the beginning, blend at the end, vowel in the middle.
I agree. I agree completely. What about the word lick?
Lick would be consonant, vowel, consonant because CK makes one sound.
Bingo. Accurate. Okay, and the last one is, and oh, so is that a simple one syllable or a complex one syllable word?
That would be in my notes. That is simple because
Yes,
it makes
it
one
is.
sound.
Yes, it is. And then CAT, right?
That's CVC.
Yeah. Okay. So this could be a whole lesson for your students, talking about how one syllable words are built. And actually, one of the things that you could be doing is you could have a whole unit on simple and complex one syllable, because you want your students to be able to work with this with phonemic awareness. You want them to spell words and read words and do sentences with complex one syllable words. It is really an important skill set that you don't want to just jump over because it's so difficult. Right, Tracy? You know that from the LIPS program, right? It's just one of those places where you gotta really hone in on it. Okay, so here's the question. We've now gone over this, and you know what these are. So what's the same about all of these words and all of these patterns?
They
Tracy?
all have a vowel.
Yep, Isla said it and Tracy said it. They all have a vowel, and that is one of the most important definitions of what is a word or a syllable. It has one and only one vowel sound. It can have more than one vowel letter, but it's got one vowel sound. Okay? And we already know that it can, but doesn't have to have consonants in front of and after the vowel. And where those consonants are determine the sound of the single vowels. And so this is just a summary of what we've been doing so far this afternoon. Every word in the English language must have at least one vowel sound. English words also have single consonants, consonant digraphs, or blends surrounding the vowel. And multisyllable words are made up of one of those patterns, one or two of those patterns. Okay? And so truthfully, when you're working with phonemic awareness, doing multisyllable words is almost easier than doing complex one-syllable words, because you can have two simple syllables in them. Okay, second step in teaching multisyllable words. We want to teach our students to count syllables. So please say this word instrectermemble to yourself and determine how many syllables are in the word, and then also think about how you got it. I'm seeing lots of kinesthetic input. I like it. Okay, Rachel, you're saying that there's 5 syllables. I agree. How did you figure it out?
Just saying it, I guess, to myself out loud.
Okay, so that means that you can read the word and you can segment the syllables, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's what you paid attention. It was an auditory thing for you, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm a very auditory person.
Me too. Did anybody do it differently?
I teach my students sometimes to put their hand just below their chin and then say the word, and they count how many times their chin touches the top of their hand.
And do you know how that works, Tracy?
No, it was just told to me, so that's how I
So it's because we drop our jaw with the vowel. And so that's why that works, okay? And how successful are your kids with doing that chin test?
They are a lot more successful at it than like clapping.
Right.
The clapping doesn't work so much.
Because clapping is the auditory. It's what Rachel does. And you're giving them kinesthetic input that's based on articulation. Okay? Anybody else do something different? Okay.
Counting the vowels.
Cindy, talk to me about that.
So it's a big word. And so in was one syllable because of the I, short vowel, and then strect, have the E there, short E.
Mm-hmm.
Ter or because of the R controlled, memble, short vowel E. And then even though it was silent, the LE at the end.
Thank you. That's how I do it too. And so we have.
I always count. I do one.
Okay. You count it. You know what? Any way that your kids can get it, if they get it, I don't care how they get there. Okay? But it is interesting to see that there are many ways to do it. And if one way doesn't work for your student, you can do another way. One of the things that is really true is if you do like an alternate, like a visual input, that's kind of looking at for the vowel letters, you always want to have your students say it, and you want to get either putting the fingers up or clapping it or hitting the desk, because you want to have more than one system in case one fails. Okay? So that's how we teach counting syllables. And one way that I do it in my classes, and you can do this whole group, you can do this small group, you can do this individually, is I will give my students different color stickies or different color squares or different color anything. And I say a variety of words, and I ask my students to tell me if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 syllable words. So let's do that, and I'm going to ask each person to, I'll say the words, I want you to say the words, and then if you will tell me how many syllables are in that word using any method that you now know, we'll do it. So the first word is fantastic. How many syllables in the word fantastic? I agree, 3. How many syllables in the word bear? Yep. How many syllables in the word sentiment? I agree. Leah, are you with me? Yep. Okay. How many syllables with the word momentary? Yep, 4. How many syllables in the word hero? How many syllables in the word foxes? 2. How many syllables in the word trip? You guys got this, right? Okay, good, good. Okay. Now, what we have to do in the third step is define syllable boundaries. And what I mean by syllable boundaries is that in the English language, syllables are separated in highly repetitive and logical ways, and the breaking points between those syllables are called syllable boundaries or syllable breaks, whatever you want to call it. So here's what learning about syllable breaks is based on. Syllables can have one and only one vowel sound. So if you look at a word like instructor Memble, it tells you that you have 5 syllables. You can highlight the 5 vowels, and then you have to decide, well, what are the consonant patterns in between the vowels? Because that's how we decide where the boundary is. And the boundary, especially with open and closed syllables, is really pertinent. It tells you how the vowel sounds. So we have to consider that each syllable can have only one vowel sound. And then we have to say what kinds of consonants are between 2 vowels. Single consonants, consonant digraphs, consonant blends, or trigraphs. Who can define, please, for me, single consonants? Erica, will you give it a shot? What's a single consonant?
Oh, it would be like just one consonant, like the letter C.
Yes, and how many sounds does that single consonant have?
1.
Exactly. What is a consonant digraph? Melissa?
Like, oh my gosh.
I'm being psychic today, aren't I?
like, or like 2 letters that make one sound.
Perfect. Consonant blends. Who's going to define a consonant blend for me? Oh, there's Rachel. Thank you.
2 consonants that make 2 sounds.
Exactly. And then a trigraph. Anybody willing to do a trigraph? Gabriel?
A trigraph would be three consonants making one sound.
No, 3 consonants making 3 sounds.
3 sounds.
Yeah. And that was tricky. Kind of digraph is 2 making 1, isn't it? So it would be logical. But we have like STR. We don't have many, or SPL. Those would be trigraphs. So here's the thing. Syllable breaks can occur between 2 vowels. Like in the word neon, we have 2 single vowels. We can't have 2 vowels in 1 syllable, so we break between them. Or the word suet, 2 vowel sounds, can't have 2 vowel sounds in the same syllable, so we break between them. Or we can break between the consonants that come after the initial vowel in a multi-syllable word and before the next one. So let's explore some of these patterns together and where the syllable boundaries are. So now we're looking at these words for boundaries, and also syllable types, because we have learned about open and closed syllables already. So here I have the word open. Ellen, can you tell me the vowel consonant pattern in this word, please?
Okay, here we go. Okay, so if I didn't know the word
right
open, I could think of it as closed, like op and then n.
And you are absolutely correct. Can you, so we have a vowel, consonant, vowel, right? And then another consonant. And you said exactly what I'm thinking of in this word. If I have a vowel, consonant, vowel, and I'm just going to take this one off the end a minute so we can visually look at this. There's two ways of breaking that apart. I can break it after the first vowel, and that makes my first syllable what? Open or closed, Dylan?
Open.
Okay. And I can also break it after that consonant. That's totally a possibility, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And now the first syllable, is it open or closed?
Closed.
So when we see this visual vowel, consonant, vowel, what we have to say is, which one is it? Is it open? Is it closed? What happens to the vowel if it's open? What happens to the single vowel if it's closed? And you know this word is open. So is the first syllable open or closed?
Open. I mean, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Open. So we're going to break it here. Is the second syllable open or closed?
Closed.
Exactly. Any questions about that, guys? Okay. Let's see. Who have I not worked with yet today? Mary Jo. Let's go to the next word, L-I-L-Y. Let's start at the first vowel and tell me the vowel consonant pattern there for that L-I-L-Y.
Consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel.
Okay, and I start at the first vowel. I don't start at the first consonant, okay? So now, if we have this VCV pattern, we know that it could be open or closed. If I break it here, would this syllable be open or closed?
It would be open and it would say Lily.
Okay, is that a word you know, Lily?
I'm not loving it.
Okay, so let's make it closed and see what it sounds like. If I make my syllable break after the second L, what does that first syllable say?
It says Lil.
And the whole word says?
Lily.
And so, which is it? Open or closed for the first syllable?
It's closed.
Closed. Okay. You see how we approach it? That you have different possibilities. So, and I'm going to put another word here just for the heck of it. Because I want to show you all of the syllable boundary patterns for open and closed. So on this one, BOA, let's see. Gabriel, what's my vowel pattern starting with the first vowel?
So was your vowel pattern starting with the first vowel?
In BOA.
I'm actually not sure what you mean.
Okay. Do you see how I said, oh, that's a single vowel at the beginning of open, I'm going to put a V above it. And then the consonant is a C because it's a C, and then another single vowel. Do you know this word, or shall I tell it to you?
Boa?
Boa. How many syllables in the word boa?
2.
2. So I must have 2 single vowels here, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to put VV here. Can I have those 2 vowel sounds in the same syllable?
No, we need to attach the...
We need to break it between the 2 vowels, don't we? Okay. And so the first syllable, is it open or closed?
First is First
Okay.
vowel is open.
The first syllable is open. How about the second vowel in boa? Is it open or closed?
It's closed.
Why do you say it's closed? What you're thinking?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay, so
Guessing.
it is a single vowel and is at the end of the syllable, but it's not saying the sound that you expect, is it?
No.
So it is an open syllable that has collapsed into a schwa. Okay, and I never remember how you where I get an upside down e is the diacritical mark for a schwa. So I would put that upside down e about above the a to show that it's a syllable that's collapsed into a schwa.
Tasha, you just reminded me what that means, the collapse into a schwa.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, and we're gonna and what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend more time on it. I'm previewing. Thank you, though, Camille. In most two-syllable words, one of the syllables is accented, and accented means, in this instance, that you say that syllable very clearly, and you say it more loudly than an unaccented syllable, and the vowel absolutely says the sound that you expect. An unaccented syllable we say for a shorter amount of time than the accented syllable. And the vowel often doesn't say the sound that you expect. It says or sometimes I. And that's schwa. The vowel in an unaccented syllable doesn't say the sound you expect. It sounds like most of the time, or sometimes I. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's have someone else. Reese, will you do the word O-F-T-E-N with me, please?
Yes.
So, O, is it a vowel or consonant?
Vowel.
F.
Consonant.
T.
Consonant.
E.
Vowel.
Okay. And F and T, are they single consonants or a digraph?
Single.
I agree, because they have their own sound, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have two vowel sounds here. And so we know that we have to break this word up into two syllables, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sense, the word is often, where we make the break?
Is it in between the two consonants? So in between the F and the T?
Exactly. And that is, so is that first syllable open or closed?
It's closed.
And is the last syllable open or closed?
Closed.
And so this VCCV is a closed syllable pattern. When you see two consonants that are single consonants, we often break them between. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. And the last one, Mrs. Rapp, did you have a question?
Yeah, maybe you're gonna get to it, but I just want to know like how you explain that technically, like when kids will ask, like technically you can have with diphthongs, you can have two vowels in one syllable.
Okay,
so,
that's a good question. Yes.
I'm curious, like you don't always have to break that up. Like boa, I get the only word that comes to mind I'm thinking is Coachella, but I'm sure there's other ones. Like it would be co and then together and then
okay. Yes. Yes, and you are perfectly accurate, okay? You've brought up issues that what I try to do is salt my experiments. I try not to put things in that I know will be, that I haven't taught. So I haven't taught you guys diphthongs, even though you know them, okay? And I haven't taught you a lot of digraphs, even though you know them, and even R controls. So what I do is I don't put those in until I teach them. And when I'm teaching this open and closed syllable, I'm only working with single vowels. And that's why I can do it. But as soon as I teach a digraph, then I do vowel team syllables. And as soon as I teach R control, I do R controlled syllables. And as soon as I teach diphthongs, I teach them also as teams, or you can do it as a diphthong syllable. Okay. Thank you for asking. That's a very, very important question. Okay. So it's the sequence, but stay with me, Misty, and let's do this word, please. Okay. So this word, INSTEP, is an important one for our patterns. So we're going to look at the vowels and the type of vowels we have, and the consonants, and whether we have single consonants or consonant blends. Okay? What I just did, guys, is what I do whenever I'm teaching a new idea. I kind of explain, this is the thinking that we're going to be looking at. It tells my students, here comes some questions, guys, about this. Okay? So, as far as consonants or vowels, Misty, I, is it a consonant or a vowel?
Vowel.
And then N?
Consonant.
S?
Yeah, consonant.
T?
Consonant.
E?
And then vowel.
Oh my gosh, we have 3 consonants in a row here. We have to decide if some of these consonants are, if they're all single consonants. They can't all be single consonants, can they? We have too many. Or
well, I guess if it was that, like you're saying, the tri.
Oh, it could be. You're right. It could be those it could be a trigraph. Absolutely. So we have to decide if it's a trigraph, single, or blends. Okay. So do you know any word? Oh, this is so cool. Do you know any word that has NS in the middle as a consonant blend? Or is it? I'm thinking of the word chins, and there it's at the end. Is it a blend there, or 2 single consonants?
2 single consonants.
Yeah. And how about ST? Have you ever seen ST in the beginning of a word or at the end of a word together?
Yes, stop or last.
Yeah, star and stick, right? So I'm thinking, and see if you agree with me, that ST is a consonant blend and the N is a single consonant. Okay. Let's see if the word makes sense if we pronounce it that way. IN, what would that say?
In.
And STEP.
Step.
Does that sound like a real word to you? Instep?
Yes.
Okay. What I just did there is a technique that the people who work a lot with morphology and the meanings of words use. I said, let's see if this makes sense. Do you know any other words that contain this pattern? And what that does is I'm really working to build my students' metacognition, how they ask themselves questions to figure out words when they're not with me. Because I need my students to figure out words when they're not with me. I can't possibly teach them all the words that they need to learn. Mm-hmm. So that's why all of this questioning sort of stuff, instead of telling, I feel is so important. Okay, so now what we have here is we have all of the open and closed consonant patterns as far as vowels and consonants. We could have more consonants after the first vowel or more consonants at the end of a word on the complex one syllable, but essentially where we break the syllables, this is pretty much it. Ellen, you had a question?
Yeah, I probably missed it, but for like the word open, often, and instep, why is there not a consonant like a C after, like for instance?
Because I didn't have time to do it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because if we were looking, and when I spoke with people about it, I said, and what's the second syllable? I just didn't write it up there. Okay. So I agree with you. there should be a C here for open, right? No, not, this is not, that was for boa. For open, there should be a C here at the end. There should be for often, there should be a consonant vowel. Yeah, okay? Okay. Good point, good point. And this one should have a C after it also, okay? You always have to go to the end of the word. And you have to identify the types of syllables. First one, second one, third one, okay? So what we're going to do now, let's see, I want to see what this is I think that we're going to take our 10-minute break, and then we're going to talk about morphemes and some other things that we need to talk with our students when we're teaching this. So let's take a 10-minute break. And if you have questions, just write it down and we'll for sure answer them when we come back from break. So one of the things that Tracy asked.
Just pick up my son. I'm just waiting to pick my son.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things, I'm going to actually look at the question itself that Tracy asked, and I think it's a really important one because we all hear this and have this. So he said that many of his students hear CHR in words that start with TR. So this is a very, very common thing. So what I want everybody to do is to say to themselves, ch and t. And let's see, Reese, when you say ch, are you using your tongue to make that sound? Ch.
I think so. I'm using it on the roof of my mouth.
Yes, you are. And is it in the front or the back?
It's in the front.
Okay. And what it's doing is it's blocking the air off and then letting it out, okay? That's its job. Now, can you say the sound t? T. What part of your mouth are you using there? Are you using your lips or your tongue?
Kind of both.
Okay. Is your tongue working in the front or back?
No, yeah, sorry, not the lips, just the tongue. In the front.
Okay. And so when you say ch and when you say t, you're using the front of your tongue right there behind your front teeth, aren't you?
Yeah.
Really common way of using our mouth. So it's logical that our students would confuse CH and T or D. But what we need to do is we need to say, well, what about the amount of air? So let's feel t and ch. Which one has more air? T, ch.
Probably the ch.
Exactly. And then also, t, ch. Let's feel, put your fingers on the side of your lips and go t, ch. Did that feel the same or different?
Different.
Okay. And with t, were our lips puckered forward, just kind of hanging out? T.
Just hanging out.
And ch, are they tightened, the muscles?
Yeah.
So the tongue is the same for t and ch, but the air and the lips are different, and that's how you can differentiate it. And then what I would do with my students, thank you so much, Reese, for doing that with me, is I would prepare a list of words that had those two consonants that they confuse, and we'd work on feeling the differences until they use that input through the kinesthetic channel to train their ears. And they may never train their ear, but they can feel it. And you can ask them questions, and eventually they'll ask themselves questions, and they'll be able to discern or discriminate the difference between those two. So that's really actually a really good example of what happens with consonants that are essentially closely related in articulation. So you have to find the differences and compare them and then work on it. And working on it.
Tasha?
Yes?
Also, I tell the students in the English language, we don't have any words that start with CHR that say ch, only CHR would say like Christmas.
I agree with that. And I hadn't thought of that before. And thank you, Tracy. That's really a good thing also. And I think one of the things that that we have to consider, and it's so interesting, is that everything that we're doing here is the same strategies that you would do with any language. So we have to consider what it would be like if we were teaching students who speak Spanish as their primary language, their mother language, or it might be Korean, or it might be Hebrew, or it might be French. And we will have to then compare, contrast, and explicitly teach the differences between the consonants and the vowels in each of those languages. And that's a critical part of what we do. Oh, so Misty, I love this. Misty says she named her daughter Charlotte, and she is in kinder and super confused about her CH digraph that says shh. Well, you can tell her, Misty, that she has a French CH because that's the derivation. So here we go into morphology, don't we? Where does this word come from? And therefore it impacts how we pronounce the different consonants and vowels. Okay? And it's really one of my favorite topics to deal with my students because it's so interesting and it explains so much. We're going to have a number of lessons on morphology and etymology and how to, from the beginning of your teaching, pulling that in, because the first 4 lessons in my book absolutely are Anglo-Saxon pronunciations. But there is a French pronunciation and a Greek and a Latin pronunciation of CH. And we got to talk about that stuff. So that's pretty fun. Okay, let's go back to syllables and teaching syllables. So it's apt. So here we're talking about morphemes and syllable boundaries. So morphemes means the parts of words that have meaning. And I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with the word cats. Oops. Cats. So in this word cats, there are actually 3 morphemes. There's the word CAT, and that means something. It's an animal with a furry tail and usually short ears, and it purrs to differentiate it from a dog. This letter S is a morpheme because it tells us that there's more than one cat. So now we have 2 morphemes. And if we have an apostrophe after it, that's the 3rd morpheme in this word because that apostrophe tells us it's possessive. So cat has meaning, plurals have meaning, past tense has meaning, suffixes have meaning, prefixes have meaning. They're all morphemes. And there is definitely a consideration that we have to make with syllable boundaries and morphemes. Because if we look at the word Eastern, it is made up of 2 syllables and 2 morphemes. The 2 morphemes are the syllable east, which is a direction of the compass, and ERN. The suffix ERN is also a morpheme. It means in the direction of. So if I were to break the word Eastern at the morpheme boundaries, I would have east, and many times what we do is we put a plus, and let's see if I can do this. You have a dash and I don't know if I can do it. I can't. I don't know how to do it on my computer. But we're putting them together for one word. If I'm looking at syllable boundaries, anybody willing to say how do they pronounce EASTERN and where do you divide it? Isla, where would you divide this word into syllables? Please unmute. I can't hear you.
I was wanting to divide it between the S and the T, just naturally between the two syllables.
Okay, because it's got a vowel team syllable first, doesn't it? And then an R controlled syllable. And that's the way that I say it. Eastern. I don't say east-ern, right? But some people, I mean, we could argue that we could divide it here. So the reason I show you this is you have to be flexible when we're thinking of these boundaries with morphemes and syllables. And if you looked in the dictionary, they would show it divided both ways. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as it is pronounced accurately, I don't care where you break it up. Okay? So let's see. So we talked about boundaries, and then we want to have different lessons for saying, so what are the steps to breaking a word up into syllables for any word that you come across that you don't know. And these will, if you've done lessons about syllable boundaries and then you do these steps to dividing, it's really pretty simple. Because we've done it a bunch of times, haven't we? So one thing that we would add is, are there any prefixes or suffixes that can be immediately broken off of the base word? And you really can't ask that question until you've taught some prefixes and suffixes, right? But you can start at number 2. And it says beginning at the first vowel, not the first consonant. Beginning at the first vowel, label that vowel sound with a V until you get to the next vowel sound. Because we're only going to take 2 at a time, 2 syllables at a time. And once you do that, label the consonants between these 2 vowel sounds with a C. And then you look for a familiar pattern, and we've done all these patterns. And you have to decide, oh, is that is the first syllable, what kind of syllable is it? Is it open or is it closed? And how does that affect the vowel sound? And then you can pronounce the word. So maybe I should say, what type of syllable is this? Is the first syllable. And therefore, how do you pronounce the syllable? Knowing syllable boundaries tells you how to pronounce those single vowels. I can't tell you how many kids that I work with that don't know about open and closed syllables, so they mispronounce the syllables. Okay. And then you have to do that with all the syllables and then say the word and see if it sounds like a real word. And if not, you have to deal with the syllable boundaries and being flexible, and also with accent. And always I want my students to know what every word that we're dealing with means. Any questions, comments, summaries on this? Could you go into class tomorrow and teach about open and closed syllables? Is there anything missing for you?
I have a question. How do you have, like, I've seen different little gimmicks that they use where they show like an open door and a closed door. Do you have any like good visual that you recommend for like younger kids or kids that aren't getting it?
Yes. I have seen this on YouTube. No, not on YouTube, on Facebook, and I love it. So you take a door jamb and a door. And on the door jamb, you put an open syllable. I have a slide that looks like this, but We'll get to it. So you put open syllables on the door jambs. So you might have HI, you might have THE, you might have A on the door jamb. And those are all open syllables. On the door itself, you put consonants. And when you close the door, you've closed the syllable. And the vowel changes. Isn't that just wonderful? I think that's just wonderful because it's so graphic, and I think little kids would enjoy it. I think older kids would enjoy it too. I've also taken like a strip of cardstock and done the same thing by folding over the end third and putting a consonant on and having the open syllable and then bringing the consonant in to make it a closed syllable. But I like the door jamb better. Okay? Any other questions about how you will operationalize this? Because one of the things that I hope you're going to do in the next 4 days is work with some syllables with your students. No questions? Shall we go on? Okay. So now we're going to talk about accent. And the meaning, I like words a lot. So accent is a polysemous word. That means it has more than one meaning. So what is one meaning of the word accent that somebody can give me? Yes, Shannon?
How you talk.
Exactly. So someone who comes from New York might sound different than someone who comes from Toronto, Canada, right?
Which there's a really awesome video about just dialects in the United States.
Oh.
I'll look for it next time, but it just goes through all the states because I've been teaching grades, the regions, and about how each state.
Oh, I would love to have that. I would love to have
look
that.
for it and I'll see if I can post it.
Because it's a really, it's such an abstract idea, right? And if you can hear it and tie it to the different regions, that's wonderful. Oh, and Misty said, make an accent wall. Oh, I love it. I have accent walls in my house. One is green, dark green, and then the rest are light green. Okay. What's another meaning of the word accent?
If it's a multi-syllabic word, then depending on which syllable of the word are you putting more emphasis on, that becomes the accented syllable for the word.
I agree. And not only I'm going to further embellish that and say it's the syllable that we say louder, and we say it longer, and we say it with more gusto. And the vowel plays fair in that syllable. The vowel sounds like you expect it to. Who can define an unaccented syllable, therefore? Shall I do it? An unaccented syllable is a syllable within a multi-syllable word that we say for a shorter amount of time, that we say in a quieter voice, and the vowel often doesn't say the sound we expect. It says or I. We use accents with words when we're reading, and we can change meaning by changing the accent. I can say, I like ice cream. Or I can say, I like ice cream, where I accented the like, and that is much more of an exclamatory sentence. Or we can say, I like ice cream, and the end of that sentence, my voice went up, and cream was accented, and it became a question. So what we want to do, this is just the definition that I've said 100 times now. What we want to do is be able to decide which syllable is accented in a multi-syllable word and which is not. So we're going to go through this, all of us together. So Camille, can you do the first word with me? It is A-B-O-U-T. Can you say that word for me?
About.
How many syllables?
2.
And the first syllable, what's the vowel? Use your eye and tell me what's the vowel in the first syllable.
It's an A.
And what are the 2 possible sounds that an A can say in what you've learned already? It can be an open sound or closed sound. So what would it sound like?
Or A.
Exactly. Is it saying either one of those in about?
It is not.
No. And would you say that that first syllable, you said really quickly?
Yes.
And was the vowel sounding like instead of a or a?
It was.
So the first syllable is unaccented
Mm-hmm.
and the second syllable is accented. The vowel in the first syllable has been muffled into a schwa.
Got it.
Okie dokie. Cindy. The second word, collapse. Do you know how to pronounce that?
Collapse.
Collapse. Is one of those syllables, are you saying it more quickly than the other one? Which one would it be, the first or the second?
The first is faster, but the O is a schwa because it makes the sound.
Exactly. So we know an A can collapse into a schwa now, and an O can. Thank you. How about the function word, just the letter A? Do we say A or both? Leah? Both. Now let's look at your name. How many syllables in your name?
Would you say 1?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You've got the second syllable is collapsed into a schwa, isn't it? Cool. Huh?
Yeah.
Something that happens in most names. Like in my name, Sasha, the second syllable has collapsed into a schwa. So one of the things that you can play around with your kids is take names and see which syllable has collapsed into a schwa. Okay. How about the word human? Melissa Rodriguez, human. Which syllable is unaccented in the word human?
Say it one more time because I was raising my...
Human.
Uh-huh.
So which syllable is the accented, which is the unaccented? The first syllable accented?
The first one?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one isn't.
I agree. And is the U in the open syllable hue, is it saying what you expect?
Yes.
And how about the A in mun? Is it saying what you expect?
Yes. No? Okay.
What does A usually say as a single vowel?
Oh, yes. I mean, I understand now.
Okay, good. Okay. So the second syllable is unaccented, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, Camille, humanity. Human and humanity share some morphemes, don't they?
Yes.
Yes. But there's more syllables in the word humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when there's more syllables in the word, the accent moves around. Okay? So in the word human, the second syllable was unaccented. How about in the word humanity? Is the second syllable still unaccented? No. It's shifted, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the syllables, the third or fourth syllable is unaccented and the vowel sounds like a schwa? Humanity.
I'd say the I is said really short.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things, and this is really when you've gone way far into 3 and 4 syllables, that you can start to do this. You don't do this on day 1. You play with 2-syllable words and say, where's the 1 and 2-syllable words? Where's the accent? But when you get into 3 and 4, you can do this thing of comparing words that have the same morphemes and meaning is shared, and the accent changes when you have different suffixes put on them. which is the same as colony, colonial, and colonization. So Shampa, do this one with me. Please.
Sure.
So in the word colony, which syllable is unaccented? First, second, or third?
The first one is accented.
Yes.
Colony. Yes.
And
The
which
first one is
accented? Second, what is that?
the second is l, ni, and so both the second and the third one are not accented.
Right. And which one has collapsed into a schwa, the second or the third? Colony.
The second.
Exactly.
I think the second is a schwa.
Yes. Now we have colonial, which shares a morpheme, right?
Yes.
What about the second syllable in colonial? Is it still schwad? It shifted.
I think that's the accented. That's the accented one.
It is. It is. And what about the first syllable in colonial?
I think that's the schwa there now.
That's the schwa. Now, colonization. Colonization. Which syllable, one or two, has the vowel collapsed into a schwa?
Second one again.
I agree. Any more schwas in this word? Colonization?
Well, if you say un at the end, we can't, like colonization. If it's on is an un, then it should be considered a schwa.
You got it. You got it. So there's two syllables that collapsed into a schwa here, isn't there? So one of the ways that I teach this with my students is that I will absolutely only start with two syllables, and I will have them have two pieces of paper. One piece is larger and longer to represent the accented syllable. The other piece of paper is shorter and not as tall. And I put and it's a little hard to see here, but I put the sound of U or I on it because the syllable, the vowel collapses into a schwa. So I can have a whole group of my students and they can show me which syllable is accented by putting these different size papers up. Okay, so here's an example of that. For the word about, an oyster. And I would say to my students, I'm going to say these words, please repeat these words, then show me how many syllables are in each word and which syllable is accented by using your colored squares. And in that way, I can do this with a whole class or a small group or individually. And these are the diacritical marks for schwa. So that is the upside down E. And then the accent grave we put for the accented syllable. And that's that almost, it looks like it's close to an apostrophe, but it really isn't apostrophe. And so that's, I think, a good thing to do with your students. Yes. Now it's in the right order. So here's an example of why accent is important. When you have words like the word survey, affect, rebel, contract, if you change the accent pattern, you change the word from a noun to a verb. Survey is a noun. They took a survey of the land. Survey is the act of calculating the length and width of a piece of property. Affect is an emotion. Affect is a verb changing something. Rebel is someone who rebels. contract, we actually change the pronunciation there, don't we? So accent is really important. It changes meaning, and it changes how we pronounce this. So give me feedback. Do you guys need to practice some more with accent and schwa? Give me, no. Cindy's saying no. She's got it down. We can go on from this slide, or we can use this slide, but I do need feedback. So Melissa, do you need some more practice with this or not? No,
No,
okay.
I was just, hold on, sorry.
No, that's okay. So we're going to skip this guy.
Hold on. The reason sometimes I have trouble right now, like I was listening to you because I'm with Rachel right now in the second half.
Yes.
So we're sharing the sound. And
I love it.
Sometimes I just bounce back ideas on her.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm glad you're doing that. Okay. Okay.
This is Mary Jo, and I just want to say that this is exactly where I think my my fifth and sixth graders for sure. This is so perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Good.
And I love the paper. Yeah.
Great. And the wonderful thing about this is that you can teach all of the vowel sounds within the context of syllables, and it makes it meaningful for students, and it also is more sophisticated so that they'll see the value of learning the vowel sounds because they'll be able to read longer words. So like I just tested a student, and he can read one syllable words really accurately. But you put it into a multi-syllable word, whether it's an open, a closed, or anything else, can't do it. So we're going to go right to syllables with him and use the context of syllables to teach him the different vowel sounds and how words can be meaningful that way. And he will think that it's wonderful because that's where his skills break down. Okay. What I would like you to do is I would like you to kind of step back and review, because we've been talking for an hour and a half about multi-syllable words. And I'd like you to just kind of go in your mind backwards and say, so what are the concepts and the ideas and the skills that are needed not only for accent and schwa, but for multi-syllable words? So I'm asking you to problem solve here. What do I need to include in my lessons about multi-syllable words? And then if you could think of 2 activities that you've done yourself that have been really knocked it out of the ballpark, such great activities, you want to share it with your friends in this group. So please make that list and 2 activities, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. And using your handouts and the book are being resourceful, as well as your own background knowledge. And then I'm going to ask you to share that out. Let's start out with Erica. What is one thing that you put on your list of concepts, ideas, or skills for multi-syllable teaching?
I answered the second one mostly. That's
okay. Go for it.
So I wrote, one of the things that I've done in the past is taught syllabication by especially with the lower kids. I'm sorry, my kids are having.
Okay, don't worry.
I do more of a total physical response where it's like we break words into syllables by touching their head, their shoulders, their knees, so that way they break it up this way and they can actually feel it and count them. But one of the things that I said I need to work on is teaching syllabication, like with the older kids, and teaching them those rules of going through and identifying the vowels, the consonants, and then teaching. I like that idea of teaching the accents using the different size cards so they can actually hear it and see it. So those are 2 of the activities that I put that I need to work.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Ellen, give me one of your concepts, ideas, or skills at the multisyllable that you know you want to teach.
I like the idea of the chin dropping for the vowel sound.
Mm-hmm.
I have them underline when I'm teaching multisyllable words. I have them underline the vowels. I like that.
Okay, great.
As well.
And is there one activity that you wanted to share? Or is that your
well,
activity?
Yeah, I do that, but then I use rewards. I don't know if you're familiar with rewards. So once they've underlined, then they put a loop underneath
Yes.
each word part to help them break the word down.
Yes, and rewards is a good program for that. It's really good. And so is, let's see if I can think of this one. I'll think of it in a minute. I'll come back to you. Okay. Shannon, what did you put down for a concept, idea, or skill?
The open syllable versus the closed syllable.
Okay. And we really do want to, and I cannot tell you how many times when I teach open and close that people generalize that any vowel that is followed by a consonant is closed. And that, I mean, it happens so often, but it isn't. For closed, you must have a single vowel. That's the only kind of vowel you can have in a closed syllable. I can't tell you how many people just generalize that. What is an activity that you'd like to share, please?
I want to look more into that door jam, that one that you were talking about, because visual to that. So I'm kind of interested, but I don't quite see it yet.
Okay.
And then I also did like Tracy's suggestion of putting your hand underneath your chin.
Okay.
I'm so used to clapping or counting this way.
Yes.
Like the fact that it's actually making them their chins like this.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can find a picture of that door jam because it's really cool. So door jam, open and closed. And if I do, I'll send it to you guys. Okay. Shampa, what is one idea that you want to teach at the multisyllable level, please?
I would like to teach the closed syllable and the open syllable concept.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I like the idea of the door. I cannot deny that. I love that. I used to do the thin one before. I used to do the thin one before, but with masks and all those things, like we have to keep reminding kids, keep the mask on your nose. Those activities have taken a they have taken a back seat.
Yes.
And so that is something that we have to get back once the mask is gone. And one of the activities that I would like to do is I would like to use the door idea and do that activity and explain to them and how the patterns whenever we go into multisyllabic words, they're like, okay, so A blank E spelling or this spelling, why is it not following that? So that explanation, I think the fact explaining the closed door, the closed syllable, and the open syllable would be helpful.
Good. Okay, Rachel, what you got?
So my first was the open and close vowels, as well as when and where to segment a word.
Okay.
And so making sure you know where you're segmenting is important. And then when I'm teaching multisyllabic words, I kind of make them detectives. It's like, okay, what in this word do we know? Can you spy a word that you know? Okay, so we know that part. So, okay, what does that word say? And then, okay, let's work our way out from there. And let's sound out the rest of those letters to see if we can recognize this word.
Great. And that's really that we want our students to think that way, don't we? Because they're going to have to think that way on their own. Absolutely.
I do a lot of blocking. Like I will cover parts of the words. I'm like, okay, so we know this part. All right. Now let's put this with that. Okay, so we got that. Now, okay, what's this say? Okay, now let's put it all together. And then I try to teach them when they're reading to do it themselves. So at first I'll do it. And then it's like, okay, now I want to see your fingers covering up stuff when you're getting to those multisyllabic words.
I like it. I like it a lot. I do. Yeah. Leah, What did you put down?
So the last thing I had was just teaching the accent and the schwa.
Uh-huh.
Then for an activity, I was just thinking of something like puzzle pieces, breaking them down so they can visually see how they're separated and then when they come together.
I like that a lot. You know, you can get stickies that are puzzle pieces, shaped like puzzle pieces. And that would, I've used those before with students, and that's really fun. And it kind of gives them a visual hint too of where it goes. So you could have, you could have like words in envelopes with those stickies, and they have to figure out, and it would be a great phonemic awareness activity to say, oh, I'm going to move this here. I'm going to move this here. What does it say? That would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So Tracy is putting all kinds of things in the chat. He's saying groups can be based on the number of syllables or open and closed syllables. Do you want to just say this out loud, Tracy?
Yeah, I was going to say put the words on cards and then give those cards to the students and ask them to put them into groups. They can determine the categories or even the number of groups. So you could have like open words that are open syllables, words that are closed syllables, or words that have affixes.
Yes.
So
sorting is one of the best things we can ask students to do because they have to think. It's not a
you also want them to communicate to each other.
Yeah.
To communicate their own thinking.
And to say, why did you sort it this way? What's your criteria? Which is really a good thing if they're working together or in group or individually. Thank you. Okay. Shannon, go for it. What did you find?
I just found, I don't know if anybody knows about wordwall.net or if it's anything, but I just went and tried, I put a link for closed and open syllable sorts. Actually something that looks like you can probably just assign, you know, for independent work, and it self corrects the work too. I've never seen the site, but there's so many little activities that just relate.
Wonderful. So it's wordwall.net?
I believe so. And I actually, the link that I put in is specifically for closed and open syllable sort.
Wonderful, wonderful. There are so many resources. It's like I'm constantly saying, oh, I have to categorize this so I don't forget it. Because there's so many things. Okay, anybody else want to put in their ideas, please? I haven't called on.
One thing that I have a bunch of kinesthetic learners, so we use those little poppets for the sounding out for the syllabication of the different letter sounds, and then we also use Jenga tiles. So I'll put a word on the board, and then they'll figure out how many tiles they need, and then also to practice nonsense words, we'll do it. We'll do it backwards. So we'll do like.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love it. Now So explain to me how you use the Jenga tiles, because I love Jenga. So it's a new adaptation. How do you do it?
So just all the kids have their own set of tiles. They put a word like excellent. So they have to talk as a team, figure out how many blocks there are, and then they stack how many syllables. So each word would be a stack, and then going backwards, like it'd be taking one off, and then they would say like ent, L, and then X.
Oh, that's an adaptation for Jenga that I've never done. That's great. I love it. I love it. Okay. Gabriel, what did you have down?
Yeah, I was liking the thing that Tracy said. I like that a lot. Maybe just think of the syllables and with the chin. It's like how you mentioned that it helps with the different types of learning styles too. You know that might be a physical kind of thing. They can actually feel that. I kind of thought that was a great idea.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask permission to be a rebel and to say something that might make you angry. And we'll end with that, but you can remark to it. So one of the things that I really strongly believe is that the whole idea of learning styles as opposed to input systems is a really important distinction. And the reason it's a really important distinction is the whole idea of learning styles came from research on people who had had their brains cut in half. And what happened is they said, oh, look, they can't do this and this and this now. They can't. And none of our brains have been cut in half. So the image of how the brain works is more of an interconnected multiple highways than something split off. Now, all of us are more comfortable with maybe input that we process visually or auditorily or kinesthetically. But the truth of the matter is we have to ask, what's the task? And what does the task demand of us? We got in a lot of trouble when we said, this student, and I have been at IEPs forever and a day with this student is a visual learner, we'll teach them how to read and spell visually. And the reason that doesn't work is when you teach a student to memorize and look at shapes, you are literally using the right back part of the cortex, and you are creating a dyslexic reader. If you teach them using the sounds and the kinesthetic and the meaning and linguistics, you are using the left side of the brain. And even a student who is labeled dyslexic will learn how to use that highway of interconnectedness of all the processing, and they will become an efficient reader. So I'm really careful, and I hope you will become more careful of saying, oh, this student may prefer the kinesthetic input, but this task demands this kind of input, and I have to be able to teach so that they can be successful. Math is very much a visual spatial skill. That's why I'm not good at it. I'm so much stronger auditorily, and that's why I love reading and spelling and vocabulary. So it's a real, it's something that we've been taught, and it's not scientifically based. So now I'll step down off of my high stand and say, what do you have to say about that? Anything?
I mean, I'm so glad I know that now.
Thank you for allowing me to do that, Camille. It's just, I can't tell you how many times I went to an IEP and they said, oh, this student doesn't have phonemic awareness. We're going to have to teach him visually. Then they'll never read efficiently. Anybody else?
I agree. It's similar to I'm a special ed teacher, so yeah, those.
Me too. Yeah.
Can be maddening, and we talk about accommodations and modifications, and it's like, these, if it's any good teacher will use these things, and they don't need to be in an IEP. But it's you don't want to just focus on one modality. You want to provide multimodal teaching so that everyone have access to can use their preferred modality.
Right. And we want to be sure that we ask what modality is critical to the subject that we're teaching, so that even people who are not efficient at it, I mean, that's why we teach phonemic awareness, right? Because some kids, it'll make sense to them then, and it won't hurt them to understand how to do analysis level of phonemic awareness. And some students will never learn to read if we don't strengthen their phonemic awareness. So it's a real critical thing that we as teachers, stand for, I believe. And with that, guys, it's time to go to dinner. Thank you all for being here after a hard day's work. Thank you for being active learners, and I will see you next week.